So, as we are getting into Launchpad, right, we have a bunch of really strong teams coming in, right, into this Launchpad too. So I kind of want to hand it over right to you, Fresh. Which six teams do you think will make it through Launchpad 2?
I think to start, definitely, I want to shout out Return to Form. Hook resets, love him to death. Player I've been playing with for quite a while. I like duo queuing with him every now and again. It's been a minute actually. Hook, if you're listening to this, we got to duo queue again. But he likes playing a lot of like the kind of like speed characters. He likes playing like Kai, Era. Unfortunately, Era is not really in a state that a lot of people think is good, but he still somehow makes it work. Um, and then you got Leo Leon, who I think is like one of the top level brawlers currently in the game. He's really creative with how he scores. Like it's less about just like I'm going to get it through the goalie, and more like he will stall for as long as he needs to in order to get the core in. So and he plays a lot of really diverse picks. So he'll play like Kazan, he plays Julie, Zentaro, X. Um, I know, like shocking all those characters, but yeah, what I'm trying to say is like you really can't ban him out. He's always got something to pick. And then Moffin, who I think is like a person that you don't really need to introduce. He might not be like an NASL player, but he's played in NASL, and I think that he is like at an NASL level. So I would say that I'm going to make a bold assertion and say that like this is one of the teams that's not only going to get through land or launch, not even going to get through Launchpad. It's also going to get through liftoff and probably going to see them landing. Um, to go to the second team, I would say like Quest Esports, obviously. Zoro is looking incredibly strong. Hamster Quest as well. Like Hamster Quest has been playing a lot more Aimee, which I hate that character so much, and he really frustrating whenever he plays it. He plays it really well. He plays it in like a way that I'm like not used to, where he doesn't really like take chances. He's just like very patient with it, which I think is like what a lot of Aimee players need. And then you also have Wallaby Gangsta, who is incredibly solid as well. A lot of diverse picks, and he's really good with the Asher. He's good with the X, good with Erasmus. So, like, I think that those top two teams are like, I would put money and say that they're guaranteed to make it through. Maybe not both of them through liftoff, but at least through like Launchpad. And then we got some more like questionable ones. I think that NBS, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of like a newer team. I haven't really seen them play together. That would be Spooked Alter and Scandals, who have played together, but their goalie is Evil Drew Danger. And even though he doesn't play the game much, he can just hop in and just pick Atlas or Doob or whatever and just lock it down. He's incredibly good at just like locking it down. I don't know how much that, like I mentioned before, I don't know how much that team has played together, but Drew will just play kind of like it's solo queue, and I think that Scandals and Spooked Altar are just so cohesive and play together so well that they'll make it work, and I should see them get through. Um, and then a couple of like the more less guaranteed picks, but things that I truly believe in. I think that Cat Munch Enjoyers is like almost probably like one of the top teams that's going to be in this, and it might surprise a lot of people. I think that Mudflat played really well last week, but with Jules coming in, I think that Jules might be like a little bit better and might be able to push this team all the way through Launchpad. And then you also got Zoli, which let's be honest, he's playing at 10% of his power because he's kind enough to not pick X goalie in tournament. Like,
Oh yeah.
shout out to him. Like, absolutely would decimate everybody if that was the case. Even Kai knew, but felt inspired by him. And then you got Sphinx as well. I think a lot of people are going to be trying to ban out the Juno because Sphinx is really scary on it. But like, Sphinx isn't a person that's held down by one character, so he'll make whatever he can work. Then there's Whiplash as well. Whiplash is a team that I truly believe in. I don't think it's necessarily a secret. Like I coach Isla a bunch. We share a lot of the similar picks. She's got Atlas, Asher, Rasmus. Trying to get her on Finny. She'll eventually pick it up, I promise. But she holds it down. And then you got Tempo Melon, and I think that Tempo Melon has been grinding this game possibly more than anybody else. She is constantly in the queues. I'm always seeing her in Cosmore General. And I think that like whenever I watch them scrim together, I think that Isla and Tempo play together really well. And then finally, sorry, my brain blanked out. Finally, you have Coin, who has an incredibly solid Rasmus. They can easily flex that pick. He's also really good on other picks. Like he's got Zentaro, he's got Julie, another player that you're like not really gonna be able to ban out, and he's also really creative with a lot of his scoring opportunities. So I really want that team to do well. I'm hoping they will, and I'm gonna probably go all in on them if they are on stream in Coscord. And then finally, I think that Cyberswipe is looking really solid as well. Assertive, who is Ashy Burb but rebranded. I like the name Assertive. I don't really know why. I just like it. And then you got Expo Chan. Expo Chan's really solid. Been playing a lot of the Rune, which I'm kind of like. I want to see her pull it out. But she's got really good like a Imi, really good Estelle. So there's that, and then there's also Zoe the Witch. Zoe the Witch is next up. Zoe the Witch is so good on like Kazan on X. I want to see her break out some other picks. Just earlier today, she absolutely destroyed me like 9-0 on Rasmus. So I want to see her on Rasmus as well. So that is also a team that I'm going to be looking forward to watching a lot.
Yeah, great to hear. These are 6 powerful teams, and I too am pretty excited to see how they play.
Yeah.
And cut. Okay. Yeah, well, sounds good. But I think we've kind of talked about teams, right, for a little bit. I want to shift our eyes over to specifically players, right? Are there any players you think that are kind of stand out and should be watched specifically?
I call them but I'm gonna get attacked if I do that. So A is who I would say. I think that A has been looking incredibly solid. Every time I see them play, like they're popping off. They win strike wars against players that most people would probably consider are better than them, and they do it pretty consistently. That is one of the teams I'm always excited to kind of watch and play against as well. So, and that would be Name Chaotic, Elo Tourist. Elo Terrorist. There's nothing behind that, I promise. I think he's a good player, and then obviously I as well.
Yeah, any others? I mean, that was just one team, right?
Yeah. Thinking of like other players, like off the top of my head, I'm surprised that E-Daters didn't perform kind of like where I expected them to. But I still believe in that team. I still believe like in all 3 of those players. I know you said specifically like one person, but Color Craze always impresses me. So that I would say like that specifically. Watch Color Craze. Color Craze is usually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of mentioned midfielders so far, right? And one thing I wanted to pick your brain about is with regards to goalies. Are there any goalies you want to particularly watch?
I would say Vladilina, obviously, like I mentioned Vladilina as well. I mean, other than that, kind of like Spartan, obviously, Isla Lyra, Assertive. I keep wanting to say Ashy Burb, but they're since the name change. And then other than that, I would say not really necessarily, if I'm being honest. Other than like the 2 top teams like Muffin and Zoro, they'll obviously do really well, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we've kind of talked about a bunch of different teams already. Um, I think before we start to look at just how we think the meta will shake up, any other shout outs for teams that you haven't mentioned yet that you want to give?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, if I'm being honest.
All right. Okay, let's go right into the meta then, right? First things first, right? Since Nassau, right? It was Nassau, which was the last quote unquote big tournament. We
That was a
had
while ago.
we had before the patch, the big patch that changed things. And then of course we had Launchpad, right? Which of course it's not like the top level of play, it's around like the tier 2, tier 3 mark. But we've started to see some of these changes take hold. Are there characters you think that are must picks or must bans in the current meta?
Look, there's this certain character everyone's talking about, good in both goalie and forward. They can, use any awakening well, does a lot of damage and get surprising chaos off the side. I'm talking about Imi, of course. This creature, for some reason, everyone complains about Asher constantly. It's all the Imi players are the ones that are kind of like creating that narrative. Imi's a big problem, and that's not just because I'm an Asher player. I think that they should nerf Asher, but the fact that Imi has gotten along or gotten by so so often without any like nerfs or anything like that is driving me crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you've mentioned Asher also being pretty strong, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think that she's strong. I think that it's kind of weird that she kind of does what Julie does, but better almost. And then they gave Julie, the 5 speed or whatever they gave her. It's not enough. Uh, Asher's just really good at scoring. She's really good at KOing off the side. Um, yeah, I just think that a lot of people are complaining about her. So I was kind of thinking like, I don't really need to add to that as well. I also think that Estelle and Rasmus are pretty good right now. Bold assertion that I think that they're like the best forward pair in the game. Whenever I go against a Rasmus and an Estelle, I'm usually kind of struggling to hold because they just cover so much distance no matter how far away they are. So yeah, I would say that like those 4 characters are ones to look out for.
Yeah, for sure. I think those characters are all pretty big staples in the current meta. But the other thing I kind of wanted to ask you, being a goalie player yourself, how would you kind of rank the goalies in the current meta?
How would I rank the goalies? I think that defense goalies are really strong right now. Um, Obviously, like Imi is like a big problem as well. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Yep, no
Okay,
worries.
I don't. Yeah, I thought I put on do not disturb. Can you start that over again? Sorry,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't mean that.
Okay, go ahead. All right. Okay. For Mr. Editor, this is a pause. Don't include the previous section about goalies, right? And here we go. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask, as a goalie player, what are your thoughts on the current goalie pool and just the meta for it?
I think that defense goalies are really strong right now. Like a lot of the awakenings really work well with defense goalies. Specifically, I think that Asher once again is like the best defense goalie. I wouldn't make the claim that like she's like the best goalie in the game, but she does pretty well with most awakenings. I think that Imi is really good, and kind of like an off meta pick. I still kind of believe in Vice. I think that Vice is really good as well, and she's just kind of like not picked as much just because Imi is so strong. Um, but I think that we'll be seeing a lot more Vice relatively soon. So I would say like those 3 characters, like Asher, Imi, Vice, are really strong.
Yeah, that's fair. And I just kind of wanted to ask you too about potential off meta picks, right? Because we have a lot of characters in this game, and some of them are a little weak right now. A lot of people have been complaining about Era too, right? But I just kind of wanted to ask you, what off meta picks are you looking at for this launchpad, and any players you think might pilot them?
I mentioned Vice. I know I mentioned Vice in the goalie position, but I think in the midfield position, specifically, once again, like A plays Vice incredibly well. Color Craze as well. So I think that both of those players are going to be picking Vice a lot during tournament and performing pretty well on them. And then another pick, I think Rune. I think Rune is also really solid. Maybe like kind of in the same vein as X, where on the first set you're struggling a bit because you don't have like the awakenings that you really need. I think that Rune is kind of similar in that if he starts getting creation awakenings, he becomes a real big problem. And I think that Rennequaid is like the star Rune player currently. Going to be probably breaking out in midfield if people don't ban it. I think that a lot of people are going to be banning his Rune, but he has other picks. So
Yeah, for sure. Now I think that's kind of mostly what we wanted to cover, but there is one more thing I wanted to ask you. Are there any messages you have for the prospective Launchpad teams that are going to be playing during this Saturday's Launchpad, and maybe even the teams that are waiting in liftoff, right? Who might face you?
I just perform your best. There's a lot of nerves with it because this is kind of your last chance to get in. But I feel like you let those nerves get to you, you're just going to be playing like garbage. So if there's at any point in time that you think like I'm not doing good enough, like you're in the tournament, you're there, you're performing, you're doing way better than most other people who aren't even there. And if you're like really starting to get like bad nerves, like during like a draft or something, get up, run to the bathroom, splash some water in your face, look in the mirror, say I'm him, and then run back to your computer and actually pick something before you're locked in, like Timeless on Julie or something like that.
Oh yeah, good to hear. Right, wise words from the what was your nickname? The Steel Sage of
The Sage
Sage of Steel,
Steel.
Sage of Steel. Right, yeah. Wise words from the Sage of Steel. Well, I guess that'll do it from us. Thank you once again for coming on.
Yeah,
Pleasure
of course.
having you. With that, don't go anywhere, anyone. We'll be seeing you at Launchpad. Bye.
Bye.